You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Dueling rallies tonight. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump head to the heart of the Midwest in an effort to clinch the win. With 4 days to go, the slightest margins could upend the entire election.
I was really impacted by a lot of my high school teachers. I think a lot of us are.
Facing drastic teacher shortages, one school district thinks outside the box to bring in a new kind of qualified instructor for their students. Then fast food giant Wendy's announces major closings of many of their restaurants, their reasons for downsizing, and how they plan to rebound rather quickly. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Just 4 days to go. Election day fast approaching. Both candidates holding competing rallies in the same state again, a day after both campaigned in Arizona and Nevada. In about 2 hours from now, both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump will be in Wisconsin holding rallies in Milwaukee. Earlier today, Donald Trump was in Michigan looking to win over a key voting bloc there. We'll get to that in just about 10 minutes, but both of these states will be crucial in deciding the next president. Now, as we enter the final days, the election could possibly come down to 7 swing states. The 7 states you see here shaded in beige. Now, Trump is taking the lead right now in Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. On the other hand, Harris is taking the lead in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And that's according to Real Clear Politics aggregate of more than 50 polls. Now, even if all of the states that are thought to go red do go red, using baseline polling numbers by 270 to win, Trump would still be 2 electoral points short to secure a victory at just 268. If that is the case, the race could then come down to Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. If Harris wins all 3 of those states, she wins the entire election. In the state of Wisconsin, we're breaking down where she and he stack up. According to Real Clear Politics aggregate of polls, Harris holds a 0.3 lead. That doesn't sound like much, but the trend is in her favor. On October 20th, the same aggregate showed Trump was up 0.4. Likewise, in Michigan, today's aggregate shows Harris leading by 0.8, a swing of more than a full point in her favor. Again, on the 20th, the same aggregate showing Trump leading by 1.2 points. In Pennsylvania, Donald Trump currently ahead in the aggregate by 0.3 points, but trending down in the final days of the election, of course, when it matters most. On October 20th, he was ahead 0.8 points. This as the former president now seizes on the investigations into alleged voter suppression and voter fraud in the state of Pennsylvania. National correspondent Matt Gelka reports.
If you have a mail-in.
Former President Donald Trump told his supporters in Pennsylvania this week they already needed to be wary of election results.
They've already started cheating in Lancaster. They've cheated. We caught them with 2,600 votes. No, we caught them cold.
Trump was referring to an investigation in Lancaster County, where the district attorney's office says they found hundreds of fraudulent voter registration applications. Monroe, York, and Berks County officials also said they're investigating potentially fraudulent registrations, including issues with signatures and at least one deceased person listed on an application. But election officials, including Republicans, have emphasized none of the investigations center on actual votes.
This was detected, it was stopped, and the investigation is ongoing in some of these places. And the fact that people who are legally able to vote will be able to vote. Very, very proud of our staff.
At least 2 of the counties say an Arizona-based company called Field and Media Corps submitted some of the questionable forms. The group's CEO told the Associated Press they haven't been contacted by Pennsylvania officials, but they will cooperate if they are. The group has a history of working with Democratic campaigns in Arizona. The former president posted about the investigations this week, again mentioning ballots and calling for law enforcement to do its job. Democrats say it's an attempt to stir up fear and question election results.
I understand that Donald Trump wants to again, use the same playbook where he tries to, create chaos and stoke division and fear about our system. But again, we will have a free and fair, safe and secure election in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania's Attorney General said that the fraudulent attempts had been thwarted thanks to the state's safeguards and promised to hold any potential fraudsters accountable after the investigations wrap up. For the National News Desk in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
Election Day is just 4 days away, and we want to make sure you know here at the National News Desk, we will have special election night coverage for you on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, going through the night with live reactions from both the Harris and Trump campaign headquarters, as well as reactions from congressional races around the country. Join us next Tuesday, both on air and online at thenationaldesk.com. The southbound side of a highway connecting Ohio and Kentucky could be closed for weeks after a massive fire damaged a bridge this morning. Firefighters arrived at the Daniel Carter Beard Bridge at around 3:30 in the morning to find that the fire had started at a nearby playground. Engineers are assessing the damage and officials are trying to determine the cause.
It was complex because we had a multiple level fire. It required a response of almost 60 firefighters to the scene. It's a lot of work, but we're prepared to do what we need to do to help the public.
Detectives in Vancouver, Washington, still searching for a shooting suspect after a deadly shooting last night at a local mall. One person was killed, 2 others hurt. The suspect, who was wearing a Halloween mask, fled the scene. The shooting happened in the evening as the mall hosted a trick-or-treating event. At this time, police believe this was a targeted shooting. And we want to warn you, you may find the following footage disturbing. In Orlando overnight, 2 people were killed, 6 others hurt in 2 shootings that took place among crowds celebrating Halloween. The victims are all in stable condition. Police identified and took into custody one suspect, a 17-year-old who we understand tonight has a criminal history. Police Chief Eric Smith said today the situation could have been a lot worse.
Halloween is one of our busiest nights of the year. Always is. Usually the Halloween night itself is busy, and then the Saturday after Halloween is always almost just as busy. We're doing anywhere from 50 to 100,000 people. During this night, we had about 100 officers who are working the detail, spread out. And as you can see in all the videos, the officers responded very quickly. The officers did a great job. They responded right when they heard the shooting. You know, as everybody else is running, they're not. They're sitting in a position looking for a shooter. They found a shooter and they took him down.
Right now, authorities are searching for the gunman who shot New York State Trooper Thomas Massia 2 nights ago. Police say Massia was just trying to help a driver who he thought was stranded on Long Island when the driver then shot him in the leg. Massia was hospitalized and released today. The suspect, we understand, escaped in a black Dodge Charger with a temporary New Jersey plate. The number shown right there on your screen. If you know anything, call police right away. And we are about 2 weeks away from the murder trial of Jose Ibarra, the illegal migrant suspected of killing University of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley back in February while she was taking a run. A hearing today looked at whether DNA and phone data can be used as evidence during the trial. Ibarra is facing 10 charges. Opening statements are set for November 18th. Also tonight, the first day of Daniel Penny's trial has wrapped. That's the Marine veteran charged with manslaughter and negligent homicide in the 2023 death of Jordan Neely, a homeless man who was acting erratically on a subway car. Prosecutors say when Penny put Neely into a chokehold, he used excessive force and knew what the outcome would be.
He used his martial arts training to kill Jordan Neely and did not use his first aid training at all.
The defense has argued that the Marine feared the man would get violent after Neely allegedly made threats about hurting people, thereby scaring passengers. With a major teacher shortage in play, Texas is seeing a growing number of uncertified teachers stepping into the classroom, and it's not necessarily a negative. Many are coming from diverse professional backgrounds outside of education and bringing a wealth of experience. The National News Desk's Maritza Mendoza reports.
I am certified to teach.
Okay.
I went through an alternate teaching certification program called Teachworthy.
High school teacher Joseph Golembuski brings 33 years of cybersecurity and computer science experience into his classroom at Northside School of Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship, or NSITE. It's a magnet school located at the Holmes High School campus.
After I was ready to leave the Air Force, I wanted to continue to contribute, to serve, and teaching schools seemed like a good way of doing that, being able to pass on some of my experience, hopefully make learning fun.
Golombuski is one of thousands of uncertified teachers stepping into classrooms and bringing their professional backgrounds with them. Before the pandemic, there were about 2,300 uncertified teachers in the state of Texas. Since the pandemic, that number has significantly increased. Take a look at this graphic from the Texas Education Agency. This year, non-certified individuals grew to 34% of newly hired teachers, a historic high. Executive Director of the Bexar County Education Coalition says that's great news for parents.
Even with alternative certified programs, our districts are still going through a rigorous process of ensuring that the teacher, where they are in their particular training, is well matched for the classroom that they're going into.
Oh, he's a huge asset to our campus.
Principal of Insight, Brad Hebert, says without educators like Golombuski, they'd be short-staffed.
We are a school with a focus on cybersecurity and programming, entrepreneurship. So we look for teachers with his type of background. We want to be able to provide students teachers who have the industry experience that he has.
I was really impacted by a lot of my high school teachers. I think a lot of us are. So I wanted to have that kind of impact on students today.
Boeing stock is up by over 3% today following a new proposal to end the machinist strike that's entering week 6. The plane maker sweetened its offer from a 30% pay raise to a 38% increase over 4 years, along with other benefits. The union is telling its members to approve this deal when they vote on Monday. Boeing has lost billions of dollars this year because of the strike and other problems. Coming up, Michigan is a must-win state for Vice President Harris, where things stand as she looks to gain support from progressives who disagree with her stance on Israel. Then, the latest look at America's economy, why analysts believe the newest jobs report was much weaker than expected. And later, how a routine car repossession in Florida escalated into a high-speed life-or-death chase with bullets flying. We're back in 90 seconds. Tonight, Israel on a high level of readiness. CNN reports for what Iran says will be a response to the IDF's recent attack on Iranian military targets, which Israel said was in retaliation for Iran's missile strike barrage on the country earlier this month. It comes as U.S. officials return from the Middle East, where they held talks on how to deter Iranian retaliation and push to resolve the conflicts in both Lebanon and Gaza, where war hostilities rage on. In Lebanon, the Israeli Israeli military striking a southern suburb of Beirut overnight, killing at least 7 civilians, according to authorities on the ground there. In Gaza, where the UN is now warning the situation is, quote, apocalyptic. Health officials say more than a dozen were killed after an Israeli strike hit 2 homes. Israel says it launched an operation after detecting Hamas members in the area in that case, but it is unknown if any militants were killed.
Please let us welcome Mr. Donald J. Trump.
And that is a presidential candidate Donald Trump getting welcomed to a cafe in Dearborn, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. Trump has been working hard in recent days to appeal to voters in that state that has more than 300,000 Arab Americans, many of which want to see the bloodshed in Gaza and Lebanon end. If Trump garners more support, it could tip the scales in what is a must-win state for Harris. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports.
Democrats are counting on the so-called blue wall to deliver them another presidential victory. But in Michigan, part of the struggle comes from within their own party. Free Palestine! The state is home to large populations of Arab American and Muslim voters who've been a key part of the Democratic base. This year, Harris's support for Israel is pushing many of them away, channeling frustration through protests at her rallies, like this one in Ann Arbor Monday.
And listen, hey, on the subject of Gaza, hey guys, I hear you. On the subject of Gaza, we all want this war to end as soon as possible and get the hostages out, and I will do everything in my power to make it so.
She needs every Michigan voter she can get. In 2020, President Biden won the state by about 154,000 votes. In 2016, Donald Trump won by fewer than 11,000 votes. That's about 2 votes per precinct. The race in Michigan is close. Recent polls show either Harris with a low single-digit lead or a dead heat. It's why both candidates and their running mates are making appearances in Michigan in these final days of campaigning.
Michigan, win this thing for America. Let's go.
I love Michigan. We'll be back soon.
On Friday, Trump making the first stop of a major presidential candidate this cycle to visit Dearborn, the largest Arab-majority city in the country, before holding a rally north of Detroit. Harris will make stops throughout the state over the weekend. The Harris campaign isn't concerned Arab and Muslim voters will support Trump, but that they'll vote third party or not vote at all. Senator Bernie Sanders, who disagrees with Harris's record on Gaza, trying to get through to them.
We will have, in my view, a much better chance of changing U.S. policy with Kamala than with Trump, who is extremely close to Netanyahu and sees him as a like-minded, right-wing extremist ally.
His message not just for Michiganders, as Harris encounters protesters at events throughout the country. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Atra, thank you. New details. More heavy rain in Spain, making rescues from historic flooding very difficult there. The death toll now at least 205, with most victims in the eastern region of Valencia. The Spanish Civil Guard saying it has rescued more than 4,500 people, an unknown number still missing tonight, and the death toll only expected to rise. This is Spain's deadliest natural disaster in decades. Taking a look at the U.S. economy in the final days before the election, October's jobs report weaker than economists expected. Only 12,000 private sector and government jobs were added, well below the 223,000 added in September. The Boeing strike and hurricanes likely, analysts say, contributed to that decline. And Wendy's is closing 140 underperforming restaurants before year's end. That's according to the CEO. He didn't say which ones are shutting down, but said they're not all in one place. The fast food chain plans to offset the closures by opening new restaurants in what they say will be better locations. And looking ahead to this weekend, you can get some extra sleep. That's always good news because of daylight saving time. That's ending where time is going to switch over at 2 a.m. And these semi-annual time changes do have their fair share of critics. A couple years ago, the Senate passed a bill to make daylight saving time permanent, but the measure never came to a vote in the House. Well, a new non-invasive way to screen for esophageal cancer, and those at higher risk, like firefighters, now have access to that screening. To date, more than 4,000 firefighters nationally have been screened, And medical reporter Barbara Morse takes us to one testing site in Rhode Island and shows us how it works.
Just big for me and just swallow.
Matt Pearson is leading by example as the interim fire chief in Smithfield, Rhode Island. He has agreed to be tested for a condition known as Barrett's esophagus.
The important thing to realize is Barrett's esophagus is a risk factor for esophageal cancer, and more people have Barrett's esophagus than we realize because not everyone has symptoms.
Exposure to smoke is a significant risk factor, which is why the makers of EsoGuard have been partnering with fire departments across the country, helping to ensure this DNA test is available and paid for.
If we can do our small part, protect the ones that are protecting our communities, that's a great thing.
It's a different sensation.
As a deflated balloon is swallowed down through the esophagus,
we inflate a balloon to about this size, make sure we're in the accurate place, deflate the balloon slightly, and then we pull back for about 5 seconds.
And it collects cells in a very safe, simple manner.
Those cells sent to a lab and tested for precursors to esophageal cancer.
It's an incredibly wonderful, easily accessible addition to our toolbox as gastroenterologists to screen these patients.
And hopefully it comes back negative for everybody, but if not, we caught it at an early stage that we can help them get better.
And that's the point, catching this before it becomes cancerous and very hard to treat successfully. This test, just so you know, is generally covered by insurance. I'm medical reporter Barbara Morse.
Barbara, thank you. And coming up, as electric vehicles get more popular, concern grows about safety risks that left one California official shocked. We'll be right back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin in the nation's capital, where businesses are making safety preparations before Election Day.
With only a handful of days to go before Election Day, some downtown D.C. businesses are preparing for the worst.
It is completely ridiculous that we have to do this.
While Ebony Boger believes it's a sad commentary on how polarized our nation is heading into Tuesday, she understands the reasoning behind protecting valuable property. She works less than a block away from the White House.
I got an email from building management last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago at this point now, and they told us that this was going to happen.
Boger was here the last time violence erupted on January 6th.
According to the Energy Department, California has 1.2 million electric vehicles. What might surprise you is how EVs outweigh standard cars with combustible engines. This is what a 7,000-pound electric vehicle can do to a guardrail going 60 miles an hour. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln is crashing cars at its Midwest Road Safety Facility. In another test, it's eye-opening to see what happens after the truck hits the barrier. It moves back several feet, but the truck didn't jump or break through the concrete. While the crash didn't surprise the director of research, it concerns Fresno Assemblyman Jim Patterson.
When I reviewed the test video, I was absolutely astounded.
Deputies say a terrified tow truck driver was reportedly being chased with a repossessed Maserati half-strapped on his truck, and its owner was right behind him, armed and refusing to let go.
That's insane. I hope they're okay.
According to the police report, the driver was working to hook up the Maserati when Brian Martin came outside with no shirt, holding a black handgun. The driver tried to escape, speeding toward the gates of the community. But deputies say Brian Martin wasn't backing down. He and his wife, Lori, got into a Mercedes SUV and took off after the tow truck. As they pulled up behind him, deputies say Brian fired shots. The driver raced down Lake Worth Road and called 911.
Election day is right around the corner. Exercising your civic duty is not the only thing you have to look forward to. When we come back, the election-related deals and freebies up for grabs. Just a few days away from the election, and we are getting an idea of the perks and discounts you can take advantage of on that day. Both Uber and Lyft giving riders 50% off trips to their polling place. For those ordering food, Uber Eats is offering 25% off certain orders Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning. And if you've got a sweet tooth, as I always do, then look no further than Krispy Kreme giving away a free original glazed donut to honor what they're calling democracy. Catch that pun there? That's a good one. Johnny Rockets handing out a free shake if guests approve they have voted. Not a bad idea, of course, to treat yourself for fulfilling your civic duty. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage and for reaction to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's dueling rallies in Milwaukee tonight. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for joining us.